He sits in Sydney's Silverwater prison with few creature comforts, except for his well-worn acoustic guitar. An Australian citizen accused of many things, but facing no actual charges. For Dragan Vasiljković, it could perhaps be worse. The prospect of a trial and prison in Croatia is a fate he's trying to avoid at all costs. Soon as expected, a federal minister will decide if Vasiljkovic's extradition and sensational war crimes case will proceed. But who is this man and what has he done? Well, that depends very much on who you talk to. Reporter Trevor Borman has journeyed throughout the Balkans to investigate the real story of Dragan Vasiljković.
The medieval fortress of Knindža in Croatia has a history of conflict and bloodletting, including a war in the early 1990s. This was the domain of Serbian paramilitary captain Dragan Vasiljković, who became a national hero for his deeds. He's a man of many faces. Dragan Vasiljković is an Australian citizen, a golf instructor, ocean yachtsman and aviator, and a man who also goes by the name of Daniel Snedden.
Very much a patriot. I mean, he even changed his name to an Australian politician, for Christ's sakes.
But in Croatia, he's a wanted man, an alleged war criminal whose men are accused of torture and murder during the Balkans War.
All those who committed crimes, serious crimes, must be punished and must be found.
The events on this hilltop fort almost 20 years ago may well be played out in a war crimes trial not far from here. But before that's possible, the Croatians need their man. Captain Dragan Vasiljković, or Daniel Snneden, is a long way away. He's in a maximum security jail in Sydney and fighting with every means he has to avoid facing his accusers.
They've got the wrong man. They're looking for... It's just totally wrong what they've done and unfair.
The people of Serbia revere their patriots, and in the early 1990s, there were few more admired than Captain Dragan.
He was a natural-born leader. He cared about what he did. Very adventurous, full of life, never afraid to try anything.
The man who immigrated to Australia as a 14-year-old boy was back in his homeland as the former Yugoslavia was falling apart. Driven to support the Serbs in Croatia, he organised and trained a local police force in the Serb-dominated Krajina region. They were military skills honed from 4 years in the Australian Army Reserve.
Discipline played a big part, and I mean, brought them together as a unit. And honour. That's something that was instilled in him for the military in Australia.
Croatia's declaration of independence in 1991 saw the beginning of a bitter war, and Captain Dragan Vasiljković would train ragtag Serb civilians and lead them on operations against the Croats. The town of Glini still bears its battle scars. Hundreds died here in savage fighting. The Croatians claim Captain Dragan's men fired on homes and schools as residents were fleeing, then looted their properties. Darko Kauric surveys the remains of the police station from where he served. He was taken prisoner by Dragan's troops early in the war.
Njegovi specijalci koji su nas otprilike 2 tjedna dok smo se nalazili u Golubiću maltretirali, psihofizički zlostavljali, vodili nas na tobožnje strijeljanje kako bi nas uplašili i psihički što više uništili.
What happened here came to be regarded by the Croatians as a war crime. At the time, Kapetan Dragan was clear in his own mind about what constituted a target. When the Croats used police stations and hospitals as fortifications, he said, "I'm sorry, I just have to massacre them." In Serbia, he would become a figure immortalised in comic books, courted for television appearances, sung about, painted, and soon credited for his philanthropic work. With Belgrade at war, Dragan Vasiljković would launch a charity to teach computer skills to the wounded and offer welfare to compatriots.
So I started this foundation. 10 years later, we have helped over 67,000 people. And they're not ordinary people, they're victims of war. They were doing some public opinion polls. And I was the most popular person in the country at the time.
But the lure of battle would draw Dragan Vasiljković back to Croatia, where the Serbs had declared the Krajina to be their own republic. From the citadel above the town of Knindža, he became the enforcer with the men he called his Knindžas.
Da vidimo gdje su.
Former Croatian policeman Velibor Bracic and fellow officers returned to their living hell, the dank, claustrophobic cell where they claim guards interrogated and tortured them for several weeks.
Znači, ćelija je bila mračna, vlažna, znači kondenzacija, pošto je nas već 5 unutra bilo, pošto smo mi unutra i vršili, znači, nuždu. Onda bi cijev od automatske puške vam ugurao u usta, a onda bi ovako na obaraču mu prst drhtao i tako. Tako da je bilo izvođenja kao vodimo vas na streljanje.
Velibor Bracic says he endured torture that included electric shocks with wires attached to his genitals. And he can never forget the day Kapetan Dragan arrived during an interrogation.
I onda je on došao, kaže, bre, već kako ga tučete, kaže, onda se to radi ovako. Onda me potegao, razbio mi je ovo sve, nos, ovo mi je bilo sve zatvoreno, krv je procurila. I to još me udario doli kad sam pao na pod par puta. I onda su došli stražari, pokupli me, rekao, vodite Ustašu.
Rijetkost je bio ko nije učestvovao u tome. Another Croatian prisoner to share this cell was Vikica Plivilic. This is German news footage of him soon after his arrest. With Dragan Vasiljković in the room, he's offered a beer and tells the crew he's being treated humanely. Vikica Plivilic says he was beaten in the days before and after his television appearance, but his tormentors avoided striking his face, so there'd be no apparent bruising. Kapetan Dragan, it seems, went to great lengths to show he was merciful.
I would not tolerate any ill treatment of prisoners, that I would not tolerate any ill treatment of civilians. Every time we liberated or conquered, again, depends which way you look at it, a village or a town or a city, the very first thing I've done, I immediately secured all the civilians, made sure they got all the food, medical treatment, and security around them.
In his studio on the outskirts of Belgrade, Dusan Vukočević's art captures landscapes ravaged by war 20 years ago.
Jedina jedinica koja sam vjerovao do kraja je bila jedinica kapetana Dragana. Ona je imala određene moralne kodekse koji su se morali bespogovorno poštovati.
Captain Dragan's former mine layer paid a shocking price for his service, but he's a man eternally loyal.
Mogu uvijek da tvrdim da nikada nisam čuo o bilo kakvom nedostojnom postupku kapetana Dragana.
One nation's hero is another country's villain in this part of the world. In the Croatian capital of Zagreb, lawyer Majo Rakić from the prosecutor's office has an ambitious brief to persuade Canberra to hand over an Australian citizen to face a war crimes trial.
There are 2 war crimes against prisoners of wars and 1 crime against the civilian population. As a result of these offences, several people were also killed.
Both Croatia and Serbia run war crimes courts. They each try Croats and Serbs. The governments of both countries say they can only move on with reconciliation if the crimes and the wars of the 1990s are dealt with.
It is very important to bring all the war criminals to justice. This is the common goal of all the countries in the region. This is our perspective for the better future.
But for much of the last 4 years, Dragan Vasiljković, alias Daniel Snneden, has languished in Sydney's Parkley and Silverwater prisons without facing any charges at all. His fate now lies with the Federal Home Affairs Minister, Brendan O'Connor, who must decide whether he be freed or dispatched to Croatia for trial.